The Great Construction Projects of Communism. This was the name given to all large scale projects of the Soviet government: railways, canals, power stations, and reservoirs. The largest metallurgical plant in Russia, the Magnitogorsk Iron and Steel Works, was designed in late spring 1925 by the Soviet Institute UralGipromez. According to another version, the design was carried out by an American company from Cleveland, and the prototype for Magnitka was the U.S. steel plant in Gary, Indiana. All three giants who stood at the helm of the construction, manager Gugel, builder Maryasin, and trust head Valerius, were executed in the 1930s. On January 31st, 1932, the first blast furnace was launched. The construction took place under extremely harsh conditions, with most of the work done manually. Despite this, thousands of people from across the Soviet Union rushed to Magnitka. Foreign specialists, primarily Americans, were also actively involved. The White Sea-Baltic Canal was intended to connect the White Sea with Lake Onega and provide access to the Baltic Sea and the Volga-Baltic waterway. The canal was built by Gulag prisoners in a record time, less than 2 years, 1931 to 1933. Its length is 227 kilometers. This was the first construction project in the Soviet Union carried out exclusively by prisoners. Perhaps that is why the White Sea Canal is not always classified among the great construction projects of communism. Each builder of the canal was called a prisoner canal soldier, or abbreviated as Z/K, from which the slang word Zek originated. Propaganda posters of the time proclaimed, "Hard work will melt away your sentence." Indeed, many of those who survived until the end of construction had their sentences reduced. On average, however, mortality reached up to 700 people per day. Hard work also affected food rations. The more a prisoner produced, the larger their ration. The standard was 500 grams of bread and a thin soup made from algae. One of the largest railway lines in the world was built with major interruptions, starting in 1938 and finishing in 1984. The most difficult section, the Severomuisskaya Tunnel, was put into permanent operation only in 2003. The initiator of the project was Stalin. Songs were written about the Baikal-Amur Main Line, BAM. Laudatory articles were published, and films were made. The construction was presented as a heroic endeavor of youth, and naturally few knew that in 1934, prisoners who had survived the construction of the White Sea Canal were sent to work there. In the 1950s, about 50,000 prisoners worked on the bomb. It is said that every meter of the railway cost a human life. Attempts to connect the Don and the Volga were first made by Peter the Great in 1696. In the 1930s, a construction project was developed, but the war prevented its realization. Work resumed in 1943, immediately after the Battle of Stalingrad. However, 1948 is considered the official start date when the first earthworks began. In addition to volunteers and military builders, 236,000 prisoners and 100,000 prisoners of war took part in the construction of the canal and its infrastructure. Journalistic accounts described the horrific living conditions of the prisoners: dirty, infested with lice due to lack of hygiene. There was one bathhouse for all, half-starved and ill. This was the reality for those deprived of civil rights, the so-called builders of communism. The canal was completed in 4.5 years, an unprecedented time frame in global hydraulic engineering. The plan was adopted on Stalin's initiative in 1948 after the drought and famine of 1946 to 47. It included the creation of forest belts designed to block hot southeastern winds, dry winds, which would help change the climate. The forest belts were planned to cover 120 million hectares, roughly the combined area of England, Italy, France, the Netherlands, and Belgium. The plan also included the construction of an irrigation system, resulting in 4,000 reservoirs. The project was supposed to be completed by 1965. More than 4 million hectares of forest were planted, and the total length of forest belts reached 5,300 kilometers. The state solved the country's food problem, and part of the grain began to be exported. After Stalin's death in 1953, the program was curtailed, and in 1962, the USSR was again struck by a food crisis. Bread and flour disappeared from store shelves, and there were shortages of sugar and butter.